much for coming, and thanks for all the roundtable discussion. I was in a few and it was amazing, lots of question and discussion. So here comes the question. I would like to ask a question regarding the environment. As Ottawa is warming at double the global rate, and also the low-income neighborhoods have the least green space. So the main question here is that what is your plan for environmental justice? And the second part is that will you invest in green infrastructure in underserved area? I hope the question is clear. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Tristan Odif. I'm the federal NDP candidate here in Ottawa, Vanier. I just want to quickly start by thanking everyone for coming out this evening. I think that it is such an important time during elections, not just to vote, but also to use these opportunities to share our voices, to explain and make sure that there's accountability around the needs that we have. And it is an incredible honor to be running, to be a member of parliament here, but it's also a huge responsibility to be the voice of 125,000 people. And so I just wanted to really thank everyone who's come out this evening for their questions and all of the tables. It's been a wonderful event so far. Thinking about why I decided to run for federal politics, as a younger person, so many of the issues that we're facing as young people, but also as people across our communities, are leaving us in a place of fear and of despair. And it's the same around housing and affordability, and it's especially the case around climate change. And so I think that it is so important that we are ensuring as governments that how we tackle climate change is being integrated into as many of the other actions that we're doing as possible. It's one of the reasons why I've always been a supporter of a Green New Deal. And secondarily, a lot of us here who are concerned about climate change are often doing everything that we can. We're trying to recycle, we're trying to reduce how far we drive. Some of the people who are not adhering to that are some of the biggest polluters in our country. Big oil and gas companies, big corporate interests who right now are not being forced to pay for the pollution and the impacts that it's having on our environment in a way that is both fair, justified, and also conducive towards us effectively tackling climate change. And it's something the NDP has often fought for, and that as your next member of parliament, I will fight for.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez? They turned it off again.
You just gotta push it up, sorry about that.
Sorry, it's fine. Bonsoir tout le monde, good evening. I do want to start by acknowledging that we are gathered here on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Indigenous Algonquin Nation, and thank the guardians of our land. I do want to also recognize the organizers of this evening. Thank you so much for having us, and to congratulate everyone putting their name forward on a ballot. It takes a lot of guts to do it, so thank you for doing that. We're talking about environment. That is something that the Liberal government has been working on for the last 10 years, and something we will continue to do. Of course, here in Ottawa, many initiatives have been going on, and environment has to be part of everything that we do. About people, about even housing. For example, one great project we have in Place Carver, which is about, it's in the Carson Grove community. It's investment to make sure that the energy is less fossil fuels and low energy. So we're investing $2 million to make sure that all of the energy-related houses have new systems. That's one example. Then there's also making sure that we protect our water. That is something I've been working with indigenous communities to make sure that we lift the boiling advisories across the nation, but also make sure that we legislate water across Canada to protect it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to finish and finalize that bill, but as soon when we get reelected, if we get reelected, that's one of the first piece of business that we would do, would be to legislate First Nations right to water, which was, just for those that are aware, the Bill C-61, an act respecting water, source water, drinking water, wastewater, and related infrastructure on First Nation lands. The other, and I could go on and on, but the other water protection that I'm working on is with the Ottawa River keepers at the River House. I don't know if you're aware, but there are many activities going on to protect our waterways here in our own nation's capital. So that is something also that I will continue to work on. Environment has to be part of everything that we're doing. As you know, it is something that we need to make sure we keep this earth possible for our kids and hopefully one day when I have grandkids. Monsieur?
Je suis Martin Sims, Marty Sims, Parti populaire de Canada, PPC. Maxime Bernier est le leader. Regarding environmental policies, well, I am against funding foreign wars. Already, the Liberals have spent to the tune of $143 billion fighting a U.S. proxy war that Canada has nothing to do with, nothing at all. And yet we're sending this money over. The Conservatives, who are not here today, they want to do more. They want to take our money and send it over to fight a U.S. proxy war. Already, we've seen 2 generations of Ukrainians wiped off the face of this planet. And so who's next? Our children? Are they planning on putting boots to the ground? Our troops, just sending our troops over to fight a U.S. proxy war? I say no. I say, hey, let's take the money that we're spending over there, further money, and we'll use it to protect our own Canadian borders. Do you think that's a good idea? I think it is. Yeah, to help our own children, to build homes, lower the housing prices so that people can buy affordable homes. Canadians, for Canadians, buying affordable homes for our children, for our children's children, so that we could grow up in a peaceful nation. And what better way to protect the environment than to reject war? Hear, hear. I don't want war. Nobody wants war. My dad fought in the Second World War. He was a NAV. He participated in 9 missions. He came back, he wasn't the same man. And he told me stories that I don't think it's appropriate to mention here, but they would be enough to keep you awake at night, screaming in terror. I reject war and everything that goes along with it. And I reject the Liberals and the Conservatives who promote war in foreign countries. And so to make the planet greener, let's stop war. Let's promote peace. Peace among nations. Canada was once a peaceful nation. We were. The Liberals never used to go to promote war. They never did this. You didn't get this from Paul Martin or Jean Chrétien. They rejected the war in Iraq. Why are we promoting war? Why are the Liberals promoting war now? Why? Well, because and there's no accountability for the money that's already been spent. That's the hard part to wrap your brain around. What I'm saying is that we take the money and we spend it on programming here, helping our own children, you know. And you know something else? We jail environmental activists that go and purposely set fires to forests and to churches, burning the churches down. We don't want that. I demand something. I demand a really harsh sentence for anybody that purposely goes out and sets fire, because you're not only destroying the wildlife, but you're destroying the number of firefighters that go out and they're trying to stop this. And really, all you need to do is put harsher sentence on the people committing these crimes, these unbelievable, and they're always environmental activists who want to prove this climate alarmism, climate activism. Really, you know what it is? If you follow the real science, it's sunspots. The sunspots that are creating, and it's going to get warmer because of the solar flares. Thank you very much for your time.
Before moving forward, I would like to just remind that we have for each question maximum of 2 minutes, because we have multiple other questions to be answered by each candidate. Thank you so much.
Well, it breaks my heart that all these Ukrainians have passed away, 2 generations wiped off the face of this planet. That breaks my heart, to know that we're funding this to the tune of $143 billion. And there's no opposition to this.
You have your opinion.
There is no opposition to this. And it breaks my heart.
You have your opinion. Give the others a chance to speak. This is democracy. Still democracy here.
Different questions, so there is going to be time to comment on the other issues. So there is one question for almost one issue, so you don't have to go deep. You can comment
Well, when I get passionate about an issue, I like to.
Just flash a card when you've got 30 seconds left, and then when you're done.
I'm sorry, I'll just interject again. I'll just remind you have 2 minutes for each question. Je vais répéter en français. Nous avons 2 minutes pour chaque question. Quand nous sommes 10 secondes avant les 2 minutes, I'm going to stand up 10 seconds before the 2 minutes are over, just to respectfully remind you. Thank you. Thank you for your passion. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'm going to be pretty brief. I'm with the Libertarian Party of Canada, and our one of our main principle is less government, more personal responsibility. And in terms of environmental issues, we would make polluters pay, not citizens. Removing the carbon tax for good, not for good, but just to remove it altogether, instead of simply lowering it until such time when it may be convenient to raise that again. We shouldn't be paying what we're paying. We've seen it in the last few weeks. We shouldn't have been paying what we were paying for gas, home heating, all of the things that we were paying this extra carbon tax on. We see now that it was all for nothing. Canada is only less than 2% of the global emissions in the world. And for some reason, our government felt that was one of the #1 priorities of the last 9 and a bit years, to tax their own citizens to try to somehow reduce the global emissions. We would stop funding corporations for their green energy programs. Good example is the Volkswagen plant that received a few $1 billion there. Volkswagen is a fairly successful company in the world and does not need handouts from the government of Canada to incentivize their battery plant. And we would take a measured approach to balancing fossil fuels and looking at green program research, instead of making grand statements like all vehicles by the year 2035 or 2040 or 2050 or whatever it is now must be green electric vehicles. That's ridiculous to expect in only a short time that we would have no fossil fuel cars on the road anymore. Again, this doesn't make sense, doesn't make any sense outside of the urban centers. There's a tendency in this country to forget that there's a whole community of rural people out there who rely on their trucks for work, and to arbitrarily demand that everything be electric is just going to halt innovation across this country.
Hello everybody, bonsoir à tous. Je vais m'introduire étant donné que j'ai pas eu l'opportunité malheureusement encore de communiquer avec chacun d'entre vous. So my name is Elizabeth Benoit and I'm running as your independent candidate for Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester. I am not a career politician, I'm a public servant, a programs and policy specialist at the CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, where I lead innovation and diversity strategies. I've also served as a manager of diversity, equity, inclusion at the Office of the Auditor General. I've chaired national committees, which were changed from the inside, and I've fought for workplaces to be barrier-free and inclusive. I just didn't study the system, I've lived it, challenged it, and worked to fix it. But the truth here is, it's not enough. I'm running in this election because I've lost trust in the systems that are supposed to protect all of us. And I know I'm not alone. If we want real change, we can't wait. We have to build it ourselves. Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester is facing a crisis of leadership. People didn't find a family doctor. Families are drowning under rising costs. Too many are stuck on the wait list for housing. Food bank lines are growing. Crime is up while support is down, and our education system is falling behind. And who suffers the most? Women, seniors, Indigenous, racialized, Black communities, newcomers, small businesses, and persons with disabilities. Every day, people like you and me who are doing everything right but are still being left behind for decades now. We keep hearing politicians will fight for you, but nothing changes. Why? Because we're putting band-aids on broken systems instead of actually fixing the foundation. We need leadership that just doesn't promise solutions, but builds them. I'm not here to manage the status quo, I'm here to disrupt it, to challenge outdated policies and force the laws that already exist, and design systems that work for everyone and not just for the privileged ones. You are all taxpayers, and we pay to a system that's supposed to serve us. But what do we do? What do we get? Delays, drafts, and excuses. If you have, okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so to answer your question now, the question was very specific to our community. It was low-income neighborhoods are disproportionately affected by extreme heat due to a lack of green spaces, shape, and water features, putting our residents at risk, health risk. And as your MP, I will fight so that we can invest in green spaces with water features, shade, and cooling infrastructure to provide immediate relief, improve public health, and reduce the long-term effects of urban low-income communities. And by doing so, we can restore trust that public infrastructure serves everyone and not just a few. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. My name is Christian Proulx. I am the candidate for the Green Party in Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester. I was born here, raised here, and I have a background in construction. And so I will tell you a little story about, maybe put things in perspective a little bit about the environment and how, I was asked earlier, how do you fix the environment? And really it's getting out of the way. Just stop harming it. So we know what we need to do. It's more of a willingness to do it. And then continuously spreading misinformation about the environment. It's very convenient because there's so many different angles you can choose, but it's not going to fix anything. If you look, we're not getting any better It's just getting worse. So then if you like, here's my little story. So then if you, back in the day, we had a strong foundation, and that included everything we built, whether it be our social programs or social network. We used to build affordable homes, make sure that people always had a roof, there was always a way that you could get food if you needed. There was always a way to help, and it was by design. But then, when you have a strong foundation, it needs maintenance. And what we did, we stopped looking after our house. So it may be nice to change the window coverings and splash of paint to make the house look a little bit better, but we're not fixing anything. And now what we have is a crumbling house. And if you want to have a perfect example of what I'm describing, just look at 24 Sussex, which is supposed to be the home of the Prime Minister, that nobody would actually live in because it's not suitable to live in. So then how, that just reflects of our priorities within Canada and how we've gone the wrong way. So then, getting back to our roots, everybody needs a clean environment. That's how we create oxygen, and that's how we breathe. That's how we have clean water. We live on water, and yet we live on plants. We need everything that the natural system provides for us, and yet we don't give it any kind of respect, or not enough respect. So if you want to protect the environment and you want a nicer livelihood for yourself or everything, and fix our problems, put people first, and think about the environment in the first place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will move with the next question.
Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for making today happen. I wanted to ask the main question. What will you do to make good living standards accessible? How are you going to fight the factors such as housing and affordability, wage stagnation, structural inequity, and unemployment? Thank you.
For 2 minutes, that's a big question. But I think, premièrement, pour ceux et celles qui sont ici ce soir, for those that are here tonight, if I'm not able to say everything, please don't hesitate to come and see me, either at my campaign office, call me, and we can continue that conversation. But the thing is, friends, is the fact that we're at a pivotal moment in our history. This election is about protecting what makes Canada great, what makes our community unlike anywhere else. And we have the elephant in the room. It's called President Trump. And he's trying to undermine us Canadians, our workers, our businesses, our livelihoods, our communities. But you know what? We won't let him. And that's why we need to work together. We need to work with all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal. We need to protect our jobs. You mentioned the question about jobs. How do we protect those jobs? Well, first, we'll have to make sure we have one economy in this country, not 13 economies. We need to work with the provinces to bring down the interprovincial barriers, to make it where it's easier to move people across the country for them to be able to work, for example. To be able to move products and services in our own country that is not as difficult today as it is to send products in the US. So we really need to reorganize and make sure that our country is strong. And then we also need to diversify. Diversify to other countries, other allies that we have, like the l'Union Européenne. To be able to do that, we have to make sure people have the right skills. And this is where I come in with education. To have the right jobs, you need the right skills. So one thing that we're trying to do on the federal front, because we know that the province takes care of the education, for example, elementary school, the programs in high school and post-secondary. But as a federal partner, we can help and bring some support to those different institutions to have the right programs for the right jobs that will be needed in the future. The other thing that I would want to talk about is trades. Construction is going to be huge. We need to have the right people with the right skills to be able to build this country that we will be doing. So I have much more to say, but in a nutshell, that is what I'm proposing.
I think that, fundamentally, the cost of living crisis that we're going through in our country right now. I think that, in a moment like this, it's so important to also take a step back and think about how we got here. Because there is a constant of folks in government at all levels making decisions every single day that intersect with these issues that right now are so deeply difficult for us to deal with. And fundamentally, from the New Democratic perspective, from the NDP, we believe that the best interests of people, of working families, of ordinary Canadians have not been prioritized to a level that has been sufficient. Folks are getting left behind. People who are working as hard as they've ever worked cannot afford to get by. That is not a symptom of Donald Trump in this moment. It's not even necessarily a symptom of the inflation crisis that we've been going through. These are long-term trends. And we don't have a Conservative Party member here in the room today. But I will say that in a lot of ways, and this is with all due respect to Madame Fortier, we do find that the Liberals and Conservatives are often a similar side to the same coin. When we're thinking about who is getting prioritized in times like this, we have seen subsidies to oil and gas companies to the tune of billions of dollars. Even our friend Galen Weston, the owner of Loblaws, right? A billionaire who is getting subsidies from the federal government to retrofit fridges, and yet during an inflation crisis is more than happy to slap a maple leaf on some of the PC products and still gouge us at the grocery stores. So in a time like this, are we putting people first? In all these important decisions that we are making, is it the voices that are coming from community rooms like this one that are helping the direction of our country go to a place where people can live with dignity? Or are we seeing an over-prioritization of corporate interests, of wealthy interests, of the kinds of folks who can buy their way into a room, not forced to live there? I think that's a fundamental question that we have to ask ourselves in this election. We have seen unemployment to this level, even though it's getting bad. We have seen housing crises in the past, but we have never seen the level of wealth inequality that we have in our country today, ever in our past. And so that is something that we have to address if we want to build a future where future generations can look to it with hope and belief that there can be dignity and prosperity.
Martin Sims again. I just want to start off that Donald Trump actually supports Mark Carney. They're both globalists. So for you all to go, oh, big orange scary man, and ignore the fact that the Liberals have boondoggled 10 years to get things right, and they still can't get it right. They still can't even get clean drinking water to Native Canadians, because I'm one of them. My grandmother Deno is a Canadian Native Métis. We don't like Indigenous, we don't like Aboriginal, we like Canadian Native. And they can't even get that right. They can't get that right. And so apart from stop funding foreign wars and using the money, redirecting the money home here to help us, I promote free enterprise. Kill Bill C-69 that blocks the building of pipelines. We need to get our Alberta energy to market here in Canada. We need to refine it here in Canada, so that way we could sell it to the States, to China, at 3 times the price instead of the other way around. where they're taking the oil, they're refining it in foreign lands, and they're selling it back to us at 3 times the price. Right? Currently, the pipelines, how they run is they run into the US and then they come back to Canada. Well, we can't have that. We need pipelines going from east to west. But Bill C-69, that blocks that energy transfer. And that's going to help make our energy sector rich and bring jobs home to Canadians and bring value to our youth and turn the economy around. Another thing I wanted to say that the COVID mandates that turned out to be a hoax. No more lockdowns. If we do away with the lockdowns, if we allow people to choose what they want to put into their bodies without being forced to lose their job if they don't take a certain product.
Without interrupting or changing subject, we are going to stay on topic. Thank you. We're going to stay with the question. Move on, if you could, to the next.
But this is important. This is what Canadians want to hear.
These are all important.
Your agenda is fixed.
So these are all important questions.
No, they're not. This is a skewed agenda.
This was an event by invitation. Thank you.
So the question was originally around how to improve our standard of living. And much like our NDP candidate has mentioned, the standard of living in Canada has been dropping for decades. And when you look at it, there are many reasons. You can point to all sorts of things that have contributed to that, but there's one constant in that equation through multiple decades, and that's government intervention. We have governments that have raised and lowered interest rates according to how they think the inflation rate is going and making decisions about that and artificially raising prices by making those kinds of decisions. We have bureaucracies and red tape that prevent people from starting their own businesses. And we have a government immigration point system that doesn't acknowledge the people who come here as doctors, engineers, you name it. Once they arrive, suddenly they aren't recognized by the organizations in this country that should be allowing them to be a doctor or an engineer. Instead, they're Uber drivers. And I've met many, many Uber drivers and taxi drivers decades ago who have been in this situation. So this is not a new thing. Referring back to our liberal candidate's comment about Donald Trump, honestly, Donald Trump is not on my radar at all. Donald Trump is not the reason why we are where we are right now in our standard of living. In 6 months, we're not even going to be talking about tariffs anymore. People are getting all built up. They're getting scared. The fear is being put into them that's the biggest focus of this election. It's the biggest focus of every Canadian, but I will guarantee it's not the focus of every person in this room, because you are worried about paying rent next month, and you're worried about being able to afford food, and are you going to have a job next week? These are the things that are really important to people, and I don't like that we're seeing this fear being placed in us like we did over the last 5 years with COVID lockdowns. I want to see us unlock innovation in this country, get government out of the way, reduce red tape, let people become small business owners, and let's get tradespeople working. Let's start training our tradespeople. Again, 25 years ago, this was the conversation in Ottawa when there was a housing shortage. This is not new stuff. The government is in the way. We have to get the government out of the way so that we can become an innovative country.
Hi, everybody. So as you're aware, 60% of recent immigrants are underemployed despite degrees. because they're facing systemic barriers in employment system. Immigrants with degrees can work in their field, so they can clearly see that the system is not designed for equity nor opportunity. These issues stem from policies that fail to address affordability and systemic bias. As your MP, I will try to cap tuition increases and work toward reducing costs at public institutions. I will fight to shift government funding toward non-repairable grants for low and middle income students. I will fight to create an income-based repayment cap and partial debt forgiveness, and to recognize credentials by partnering with professional licensing bodies to fast-track fair assessments, expand low-cost programs that help internationally trained professionals meet local standards, offer tax incentive or funding to employers who hire skilled immigrants, and provide mentorship. And by doing so, we will reduce poverty and increase economic participation, which contributes to the GDP growth and helps small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. To make things more affordable, like they used to be, one way is that you have to, by bringing in like local food production is one example. So by having more things that you need closer to home. When you have things that are closer to home, ready to hand, you're not subject to the supply chains, international supply chains and the bottlenecks. And then every time that there's someone that coughs in the wrong direction, that supply chains get disrupted and we pay more for everything. So if you look at the last bout of inflation the last few years, if you notice the products that we actually have here, like that we grow here, it didn't change that much. It's mostly the processed food and the stuff that's made all over the world. So then again, so that's one way affordability, how it escapes us now, is because we're not making our own stuff. So it might be convenient to get it cheaper, but at the end of the day, you're not providing jobs here. So you're not providing experience for people as well. So we have jobs that are perfect for people just out of school with 20 years experience. Right, yeah, try to work with that. So then, that's the whole thing, is that it's to restore affordability is to put the needs of people first. And by having a more resilient communities, first of all, by bringing things closer to home, communities themselves are more resilient. And if we were resilient, we wouldn't worry so much about the tariffs either. The reason why we're so scared is because we've had too much reliance on one trading partner. We thought it was well, it's easy, it doesn't take too much effort, but I mean, at the end of the day, as soon as something goes wrong, well, then you're paying for it. And then that's what we see today. Everything that we're paying for today is from mistakes of the past.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful insights, everyone, very powerful. And at the end of the day, what matters is the strong and independent Canada. So we will move with the next question, which is very about important topic, the healthy populations. Over to Mahdi for the next question.
First of all, welcome all the candidates and all the participation here. And I would like to mention one specific thing, that tomorrow you might be the president of the people, but today I am representative of these people, and on behalf of these people, I have very specific question. The Statistics Canada reported more than 122,000 people don't have a family doctor. One of them is me. If I get sick, I don't know where should I go. So we have 2 minutes, so please be specific as possible that what is your first approach to cut down the waiting time to have a family doctor. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go first.
Je peux commencer, Christian? C'est une bonne idée.
Community health hubs. That's one way. That's actually an idea from doctors themselves. Medical Association, by having like, it doesn't have, like, it works perfectly for the public system. So then what you have is that maybe like a group office where you group people together. And then out of that office, if you have newer virals that have the credentials that may be missing that one little piece of paper or something, well then at least they can get to work right away. And so we need to work better with what we do have. And right now we work really inefficiently. So that would be one way that I think would be really, really quick. And at the same time, well then, you need to incentivize nurses, people joining the medical field. I mean, everybody wants to go into finance, you know, or social policy, but I mean, there's a lot of things in the medical field. And right now, well, they have fallen behind. So we haven't, personal services workers, you know, they're not covered. Their pay is getting lower and lower. The nurses as well. You have some in the field, but at the same time, everybody's falling behind. And you have doctors who are burdened by administrative tasks, by filling paperwork half their time, rather than caring for patients. So then there's a lot of things. So there's a structural way, there's an administrative way that we're doing. A lot of the things that you can just minor tweaking in a sense. It doesn't need to recreate anything. You just have to get back to basics, which is assessing people for their care that they need. And then a big thing that you can do too is then concentrate again on prevention, because preventing medicine is the cheapest medicine for everyone. Thank you.
When I graduated from high school back in 2009, I remember in my management course at Gloucester that we were talking about our aging population in Ottawa and that we needed to come up with a plan to face future needs. And that was 16 years ago. So they knew exactly that the shortage was coming. And it is only in 2023, 2 years ago, that the government of Canada invested $200 billion in healthcare in hospitals and to reduce delays. After speaking with several residents of our community, many of them stated that a lot didn't have a family doctor. And for this reason, residents who go to hospital have to leave given the wait time, because sometimes they wait over 15 hours and they go home without even seeing a doctor. Not because they're feeling better, but they can just no longer wait. And this leads to untreated conditions. And the stats show that mental health declined from 70% in 2019 and by 60% in 2023. Emergency visits for self-harm are up to 45% among girls between 12 and 17 years old. And over 111 overdose deaths were reported back in 2022 in Ottawa. And this is a 65% increase. So we have a surge of immigration in Ottawa. And many immigrants, when they come here, they have to leave their careers and start from scratch in Canada because their education is not recognized in Canada. So as your MP, I will fight for an immigration pathway reform to address the shortages. The reform will support internationally trained medical professionals who face barriers to practicing in Canada, and this program would provide pathways to credential recognition, access to training and exams, and opportunities for mentorship and employment, leveraging the skills of qualified professionals from diverse backgrounds. Since the government of Canada already invested the $200 billion in healthcare without even having a plan in place, this is exactly the leadership that is currently representing us in Parliament. It is a partisan political ideology, just investing taxpayers' money left and right, and without actually with the results that we need to see. So all that to say that I will fight. Bring it back.
So this is a tricky question because constitutionally, healthcare falls under the province. And over time, the federal government has kind of leached its way into provincial politics, and they've gotten their hands into funding there. And everybody keeps looking to another level of government to help support healthcare. So I'm going to shatter a few myths right now. One of the problems in Canada is that we live under this illusion that our only option is public health care. And the reality of it is we can't keep going on the way we've been going on. And if you look around the world, we are one of the very few countries that has a single tier healthcare system. And that's poison in most people's minds in this country, but it's so ridiculous that it is. I don't even know how to wrap my head around why we want to let people die on waiting lists in this country. How is that a good feeling? How is that being social, like a socialist kind of country, when you're allowing people to die on waiting lists? We've been brainwashed into thinking the US system is the only system, that the US is a bad system, and that we can't possibly have public and private. Well, the reality is people are already using a two-tier system, and people with money are going down to the US or China or somewhere else to get healthcare because they can afford it. So why aren't we keeping that money in this country and building better services so that we can have people on the waiting list move up the waiting list because somebody has chosen to pay for their service? We've got to start looking around at the way the rest of the world's doing things and stop living with this idealized thought that we have to protect. Being Canadian is having single-tier healthcare. And it's just ridiculous that we're letting people die on waiting lists in this country. Yeah.
Well, I for one, find this question easy. Why don't we re-employ all the doctors that we fired because they took a stand against COVID? The doctors and nurses. We got family doctor. This whole cancel culture. People who've taken a stand, who followed the real science that these COVID vaccines don't work. They don't stop the spread of COVID. They actually promote the spread of COVID. And they're hurting people. People are dying from myocarditis, pericarditis. We need to take a stand and say, get these doctors who are unvaccinated and nurses back to work so that they can help treat more patients. So, I mean, the oath of every doctor is to do no harm. So the doctors that are administering the mRNA vaccines that are hurting with the SV40 contagion, that's cancer causing, are doing harm to their patients. And I'm very passionate about this. I know a lot of friends who have passed away. Some of my son's friends who have taken the vaccine after the second dose, they've died severe myocarditis, heart attack, gone. And this is wrong. We need to fix this. We need to fix this fast. So, yeah, so that's my answer, simple answer to that. Now, I spoke to a fellow in the audience, and I'm looking right at him. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. But there's some people that are here that have come from other countries that are super qualified in the medical profession. We need to take the money that we're spending on killing people in foreign lands, bring it back here to help these people, to get them up to speed so that they can get into the medical profession, so that they can be doctors, and so that they can help do no harm, help people, help others.
Thank you.
And I'm talking right to you, sir.
Thank you.
I kind of like this standing thing. It's a lot of sitting today. So I want to try and answer your question as directly as I possibly can, because of all the issues that I've heard speaking to folks at the doors, when we have discussions about family doctors, they are some of the most emotionally charged conversations that I had because of the frustration that people are feeling. So I just want to acknowledge that, first of all. And I think that it also comes from a position of there's this sort of fine line where it is in part on us to try and find a family doctor, and it's also responsibilities of a lot of different levels of government to provide a family doctor. And so we often find ourselves in these positions where we don't know if this is our fault or the government's fault, but across the board, we've kind of had enough. And so I'm really glad that this issue came up. So there's a couple of factors that I think are very important to bring up in terms of making sure that we all here have more family doctors available. Number one, Madame Fortier here has spoken about a one economy approach. And I think that there can be more of a one health approach when it comes to certifications and licensing for doctors. Right now, that licensing is practicing within the province and territory that you are. But we know that there are national health practices that are held across the country that should ensure that if there is a surplus of doctors in one part and a desperate need for them in another part of the country, that they are able to transition to those areas of most needs. That's one thing. Secondly, I think that there should be a lot more nurse practitioners. So a lot of the reasons why we may go to a family doctor is often from an issue of referral. We need to get to somewhere else, but we require a doctor's referral for it. Oftentimes, those are things that are based in very valid personal experience that just require a little bit of diagnosis that can be provided by nurse practitioners, especially for some of those low-level prescriptions or referrals that are very normal. That is something that can massively reduce the strain and ensure that family doctors are available, especially in cases of more severe diagnosis. I want to speak to also, lastly, the pathways to certification for people who are coming here with those qualifications from other countries. And those are things that we can do through bilateral agreements in terms of being able to get a full and honest situation of what training looks like in one country versus what training looks like in ours, so that we can fill the gap as opposed to asking people to completely recertify in Canada, which can take a huge period of time. And on that front, the last thing is we lose a significant amount of doctors who are trained in Canada who go work in the United States for greater funds. And that is a failure that we need to address as a country. And in a time of turmoil in the United States, we should be doing everything we can to make sure that doctors who are trained in Canada come back to practice in Canada, especially during a time of international need. And I promise this is the last thing I'm going to say, but the Conservatives are not here right now, and I will say that especially at the provincial level, they are trying to gut our healthcare. They are trying to make this system as unfunctional as possible so that they can then try to convince us that privatization is what we need. And this is not the case. And we saw early on in this campaign, Pierre Poilievre had a campaign fundraiser in which a number of people who were lobbyists for American pharmaceutical and healthcare companies were present there. And I just want to make sure that even though the Conservative candidates are not here, in terms of questions about healthcare, they have a significant amount of culpability in terms of degrading the quality of our healthcare and in family doctors. And I do not want to give them a pass just because they didn't show up for a debate. Thank you.
That's the last question for this round, and then we're going to quickly move on into closing remarks. Thank you for your comment. Just so you all know, for fairness, very quick. Traditions for the country.
So I have my health care answer, and then we can continue. And I agree with you. Conservatives, if they want to be an MP, they should be here also. Healthcare, as you know, is a right for all Canadians, and not just for those who can afford it. And we've done things as a Liberal government. First of all, we introduced pharmacare, so that Canadians can now have free access to diabetes medication and contraceptives. And being elected again, we will continue on a path to add more. We also had, I have to say, with the help of the NDP, offered dental care. So right now, 18 and under and 65 and plus have access to dental care, and it's means tested. So it's those that don't have insurance and that have lower than $90,000 yearly pay that can have access to dental care by the government, of course. Now, you mentioned about a family doctor. This is the crisis, and it's been many, many years that it has been something that we all have to work together. And that's why we invested $77.1 million to integrate internationally educated health professionals into our healthcare system. So that's one way that we are going to be able to do this, is to continue on that path. And also, we allocated, the government, federal government allocated $25 billion over 10 years in Ontario alone to expand healthcare services. We have to work with the province to get that done. It's a provincial responsibility. The federal government has to make sure that that money is used to have more services. And if I could have more time, of course, I would share how we'll get that accountability. Now, the other thing I want you to know in this region alone is that we the federal government invested $100 million to ensure high-quality health care for members of the Canadian Armed Forces right here in the National Capital Region with the Montfort Hospital. And this is something that is providing the Canadian Armed Forces healthcare access. So this is my 2-minute presentation, and I would have more, but that I'm keeping with time. Thank you.
It's very kind, thank you. Thank you for all those questions. Merci bien pour les réponses et les questions. Very important questions. These are issues that affect everybody that lives here in this area. Merci. On va commencer maintenant. We're going to go straight into, because we started a little bit late tonight. Blame on me, because we didn't get the jump start we wanted to. So we're going to end a little bit later. Apologies for that. But we're going to begin with closing statements. We did a random selection earlier. We did with Felicia. Merci.
Merci beaucoup et merci encore une fois aux organisateurs ce soir. J'ai mes mots d'ouverture que je vais utiliser comme mes mots de clôture. Alors, je veux que vous sachiez que je me souviens du soir où j'ai été élue en avril 2017 et vous m'avez donné l'un des mandats les plus importants de ma vie, qui était de servir nos communautés et aider à relever les défis auxquels nous sommes confrontés en tant que circonscription et pays. And I said earlier, friends, this is a pivotal moment in our history, and this election is about protecting our country. Some of the things that we want to do, and I'm going to also do French and English, c'est que Mark Carney et l'équipe libérale ont un plan solide pour défendre notre souveraineté, protéger et créer des emplois, réduire le coût de la vie, construire plus de logements abordables et renforcer notre filet de sécurité sociale. And we also need to continue to tackle Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester housing challenges head on. We talked about it tonight. We have an ambitious plan, including incentives for first-time home buyers. And I want to push to bring the newly proposed Build Canada Homes initiative to our riding. This includes unlocking federal lands like Waterridge Village to deliver approximately 500 housing units, including affordable housing. I also want to work to develop strong wraparound support, such as mental health and addiction programs for those that are living in precarious housing situations, because housing and health outcomes go hand in hand. I also want to continue the work on the National School Food Program, which is another example of an important investment we've made to improve our community's quality of life and reduce food security. Now, one project I've been working on is the revitalization of the downtown core, including the Byward Market, and we want to make sure that this is a canvas for us to build a renewed sense of community and purpose, and the opportunities are endless: investing, building, supporting local businesses, and bring new energy to our city. Investments also in transit and active transportation are equally critical because we want to continue to lower emissions. And one of the example is that we invested in 350 electric buses just here in the Ottawa and worked with OC Transpo. Alors, the Government of Canada also has another we're the number one employer in Ottawa for public service. So we need a strong public service ready to continue to deliver the programs and the services Canadians need. We require leadership and determination and not cuts. And I'm almost done. So I want to make sure that you know that there is really an important, strong public service that we have here, and we have to make sure that we continue to have the best people. I know that we have some here at the table that have been working with the public service, and I've met some of you. It's important we have a strong public service. So again, on my closing, we have a critical choice, and I'm hoping that you will choose Mark Carney and the Liberal team because we have a plan to defend Canada, invest in Canada, and also keep Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester, and Canada strong. Merci beaucoup.
Elizabeth, there was a random order chosen. We're next.
Okay, so everybody, this election, you finally have a choice. For years, Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester has been controlled by political parties that put their own interests instead of yours. My plan is to address systemic barriers in each of the issues our community is facing, from rising living costs to pressure on small businesses and the lingering effects of external factors such as the tariffs. As your independent candidate, I'm not tied to a political party. I'm free to focus on what truly matters to our community. When I go to Parliament, I don't answer to a party leader. I answer to you. No one controls my vote. No one silences your voice. And every decision I will make will be based on what's best interest for our community and not for a political party. So imagine having a representative who fights for your right to affordable housing, ensure that no one sleeps on the street, who pushes for real action on the issues roots in the structural barriers that matter most to you, who ensures that internationally trained doctors can work here so that we can see a doctor when you need to see one. So this election, you finally have a choice to break freedom politics as usual, a choice to elect someone who works for you and not for them. If you believe we deserve better, so let's make history together. Vote for me, Elizabeth Benoit, on April 28th.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for continuing to be so present through a lot of these really deep and interesting and important discussions that we're sharing.
And I said it at the beginning, but I want to emphasize it again.
It is so important during times like this that we do everything we can to make sure our voices are heard. There's only so much that we can do as individuals, and that's why we elect representatives. In this election, we will have an opportunity to elect a voice for our community, for 125,000 people. And over the past couple of months, as I had been on the campaign trail, I had been reminded over and over again just how beautiful and special this place is that we call home. So much diversity and resilience, and a strong culture of neighbors helping each other out, even when times are tough. But too many of us right now are struggling, like never before. We have a food bank here in this building, in this incredible community center that has seen a 200% increase in usership over the past 3 years. I, this morning, was at a homeless shelter downtown, speaking about how difficult it is for them to have to turn people away from just sleeping on a mattress because they are at full capacity, to the extent that for some of the homeless shelters downtown, their lobby is full on many nights of people just trying to find a place inside to sleep. So as we're making a lot of these decisions, I think it's important to remind ourselves that a lot of the issues that we're facing around our beautiful community, they are not new. These issues have been going on for years, and they keep getting worse. And so when we're going to the polls on April 28th, we are hiring someone to do a job, a very important job. And if it's not being done right, and if we're not, as a representative, showing up for people at every opportunity and fighting to make sure that urgent local issues get better, then we as a community are paying the cost for that failure to deliver. And that is something that we have seen for too long here in our community, because there is so much more that brings us together than divides us. And I think that these kinds of conversations remind us. We believe in the same things. And fundamentally, I think, and the NDP has always believed, that as a country, we are strongest when we take care of each other. So let's bring that energy to Parliament. Let's do it together. Let's get a neighbor, someone who lives here, someone who rides the bus to work every day, but someone who cares deeply about our country. And let's make sure that we're getting someone who's going to wake up every single day fighting to make sure that our neighbors and our community get the kind of representation that we deserve. Because the longer we wait, the harder it will be. But I think that in these kinds of moments, it is possible for us to meet some of the concerns and the fears that we have about the future with hope. But hope is paired with action. And so I say that this is a year to take action. This is a year to elect a real neighbor for Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester in Parliament. And I hope for many of the folks in the room that you'll be with me on this one. Thank you so much.
Hi, Marty Sims, People's Party of Canada. Maxime Bernier is my leader, but he won't be participating in the leaders debate tomorrow, even though our party has won over 800,000 votes in the last election. But the participation criterion were changed, and Mr. Bernier will not be given a chance to present our platform. So here it is. Our party and I believe that we should stop funding foreign wars and use these funds directly for Canadians, and promote traditional Canadian values and culture, not woke ideology. We need to protect our children from this. Impose a moratorium on immigration, help the immigrants that are already here, and give them the supports they need to get to a higher platform. But take and put a cap on immigration. Unfortunately, we need to build more houses to support more people. If we have too many people coming in, that we won't have enough houses, well, they'll end up having to be, they'll be homeless. That's a given. Balance the budget and then cut taxes. Build more quality homes towards ownership, not only rental units. And on global warming and environmentalism, reject climate alarmism. Protect the security, rights, and freedoms of all Canadians, and reinvigorate small businesses in Ottawa. So in closing, I'd like to say that be the change. Vote for Marty Sims, PPC candidate. The People's Party of Canada, led by Maxime Bernier, has not strayed from real conservative values. It has opposed the corrupt vaccine mandates, stood up against divisive ideologies, and called for an end to funding of foreign wars. The choice is up to you. Choose wisely. Canada's future depends on it. Soyez le changement. Votez pour Marty Sims, candidat de PPC. Le Parti populaire de Canada, dirigé par Maxime Bernier, ce n'est pas éloigné des vraies valeurs conservatrices. Il s'est opposé au mandat de vaccination corrompu et s'est adressé contre les idéologies qui sèment la discorde et demande la fin du financement de la guerre à l'étranger. Le choix vous appartient. Choisissez sagement. L'avenir du Canada on n'est pas. Vote for Marty Sims. Power to the people, the purple people.
Merci pour tout le monde pour être venu ce soir. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. In closing, for the Green Party of Canada, if you want change, you need to vote for it. So pour du changement, on doit voter pour le changement. If you don't like what you're seeing today, there are many good things, but there are many things where you just see that are just getting away from us. We stop caring about people. People should be the first thing you care about. And we stop doing that. We need to build the homes that people need. We need to get involved in the green economy, which is the future, which is what is going to give us a leg up in the new economy. We need to have better health care. We need to also be more secure. And you can be more secure by being more prepared for emergencies. And by being prepared for emergencies, it means that we can adapt and you can be ready for any emergency. We just saw through COVID, we did not know what to do. Although infections are nothing new. So the documents were all there, but if you don't have anybody working in it, well then the data is lost. And that's what we sort of done. So then the Green Party of Canada, it's about putting the environment first, and by putting the environment, it means looking after people. Because that is what people need, is a clean environment. At the end of the day, we need many other things, but we also want many more things. And at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with wanting more, but you have to keep in mind on the needs. You still need to provide the needs, and we've forgotten about that. It's not about just a free ride or just having fun. It's just at the end of the day, you need to look after your needs. You need to feed yourself, you need to have shelter, you need to house yourself, and you need to have a reason to move forward the next day. So we need to provide opportunity for everyone too. So that comes from just caring for people in the first place. We always did that, it's time to get back to that. So the vote of the Green Party is voted for change from what we used to have. Thank you very much.
So I represent the Libertarian Party of Canada. We're more of a socially progressive and economically conservative party. So we aren't left, we aren't right. We take different ideas from both sides of the spectrum, political spectrum, and believe that through your own voluntary giving and reducing government and allowing people to flourish how they feel is fit for their families and for themselves, this will build a better community and a better country for all of us. We want you to keep more of the money that you earn. We don't think it should go to the government first and then get rebated or incented back to you in some check every few months. You should be allowed to spend your money how you see fit. We see that demographics are changing across this country. A lot of government programs have been catering to a middle class that is eroding very quickly over the last decade or so. We have more youths, more single people heading up households, and more seniors. And a lot of those programs that the governments have been put in place over the past decades don't apply to any of them. As a result, we're starting to see the middle class shrink, and it's not easy to get ahead anymore. Clearly, the status quo is not working. We have to start doing government, we have to start living our lives differently if we want a different result. And having governments that just promise money all the time, that doesn't get filtered down to the people who really need it, is not the way to do it. I'd like to use an example. If I had $50 to help somebody who's hungry today, I could go out to the grocery store, I could spend that $50 and donate money to a food bank. I could also give the food bank that money, and they would probably extend it by 10 times because they have the ability, they've got their connections, they know how to stretch that $50. If I give that $50 to the government to solve a food crisis, probably about $7 would actually get to the people who need it. Now I'm being facetious here, I'm being funny, but that's the reality of government bureaucracy in this country. And every time you look around and you see that, oh, there's not enough doctors, or we don't have enough housing, or we don't have this or don't have that, trace that problem back to its source. When did that start? And guarantee you're going to find that the government had its hands in there at some point and thought they could make it better, but they didn't. They made it worse. And we should not be talking about homelessness and lack of housing. Lack of housing in Canada that's a joke. There's countries in this world who just must look at us on a map and go, how is it possible that this country doesn't have enough housing for its people? You've got to look at the root cause. You've got to look at what government has been doing over the years that has made this the reality of our world today. And I hope that you will take some time. I appreciate all of you coming out tonight. This is an amazing turnout. And really think about what you want the next 5 years, 10 years. What do you want your life and your community's life and this country's life to look like? Because you're just going to get the same old by voting Liberal and Conservative back and forth, back and forth. Really think about it. And then when I saw this democratic engagement question on here, get yourselves involved too. All of us up here, we had to get 100 signatures to sit at this table. And believe me, it is not easy to get 100 signatures when you're a random person on a party that nobody's ever heard of. They don't want to sign your paperwork. It is easy for the NDP, Liberals, Conservatives, and Greens to get a seat at this table. Easy. PPC, Libertarian, Independent, I have huge respect for independent candidates. You are stars above all others in this country. We should be 343 independents in the House of Commons, all working for their constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.